You ever have one of those moments where your life splits clean in half, before and after? For me, it happened in the middle of microwaving leftover pizza. Yeah, I know. Not exactly cinematic. But that's the thing about real life. The biggest moments never wait for the right lighting. The microwave beeped just as the doorbell rang. And I swear it wasn't just a ring. It was a summons. I opened the door, and there stood two officers. Not in riot gear or anything dramatic. Just uniforms and that look cops get when they know something you don't. Ethan Ross. Yeah. Your father's parole hearing is next week. He's requested your testimony. It felt like someone had just slammed a door inside my chest. My father. That name. I hadn't heard it spoken out loud in years. Not since the day they dragged him out of our house in handcuffs while Mom screamed his name like she wanted everyone to hear how betrayed she was. I hadn't thought about him much after that. Or maybe I just didn't let myself. Is that all? I managed. The officer nodded. He says he's innocent. Said you'd understand. That line, you'd understand, echoed long after they left. I sat on the couch staring at that damn piece of paper. The hearing date circled in red. The pizza was cold, the air heavy. And out of nowhere, my 13-year-old self came crawling back. That night replayed in my head like a broken VHS tape. Dad yelling in the study. Mom crying in the kitchen. The flashing blue lights. And me, standing there barefoot, clutching my science fair project like it could fix everything. The official story was simple. Dad embezzled $500,000 from his own construction company. Mom, the innocent wife, found out, turned him in and cooperated fully with the investigation. The newspapers called her brave. The neighbors called her Saint Linda. I called her Mom, and for years I believed every word she said. But sitting there that night, holding that parole notice, I realized something that hit harder than any memory. I didn't know the truth. Not really. Because deep down, buried under all those layers of good son obedience and second-hand guilt, something never added up. Dad was many things. Stubborn, prideful, maybe too honest for his own good. But a thief? No. That man once yelled at me for sneaking a soda out of a vending machine without paying when it got stuck halfway. He'd rather starve than steal. I drove out to the old neighborhood that night. Yeah, impulsive, I know. It was 10:30, and the streets looked smaller, like time had shrunk them. The house was still there, freshly painted and spotless, because of course it was. Mom always said, "The house is our reputation." Funny, considering what she did to keep it. When she opened the door, she looked shocked, not emotional, just surprised. Like I'd broken a rule by showing up unannounced. "Ethan," she said, like my name was a question. "It's late." "Got a letter," I said. "Dad's parole hearing." Her face flickered for half a second, something between fear and irritation, before she plastered on that perfect practiced smile. "Oh, well, that's good for him, I suppose." Good for him. I wanted to ask her why she sounded so calm about it. Why the mention of the man who supposedly ruined our lives didn't shake her. Instead, I just nodded. "He wants me to testify." The air thickened. Her smile didn't waver, but her grip on the doorknob tightened. "Well, that's your choice, honey. But maybe it's better not to reopen old wounds." Old wounds. That's what she called ruining a man's life. She changed the subject, asked if I was eating enough, still working that marketing job, still single, all the usual mom noise that sounds warm until you realize it's a smokescreen. I left after 15 minutes. She hugged me goodbye like a politician. Arms light, smile heavy. When I got home, I dug through my old boxes. Yearbooks, photos, Dad's watch, letters. And at the bottom, tucked in an envelope I'd never opened, was a note. From him. It was dated 2 days before his sentencing. "Ethan, I don't expect you to believe me now, but someday you'll see that everything you've been told isn't the truth. Don't hate your mother. She's done what she thinks she has to. But when you're ready to look closer, start with the books. Start with the books." I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at that line until the sun came up. Because the next morning I realized something. If I was going to testify, I needed to know what really happened. And for that, I had to start where the lies began. With her. I used to think my mother could talk her way out of a thunderstorm. You know those people who can make any disaster sound like it's just part of God's plan? That was her. If the house caught fire, she'd be standing in the ashes, hair perfect, saying, "At least the insurance will help us start fresh." So yeah, when Dad went down for embezzlement, of course she handled it like a performance. Crying on cue, wearing black to every court appearance, telling the neighbors she never saw it coming. And me. I was the dumb kid standing beside her, nodding, trying to look brave for the cameras. She said things like, "Your father made mistakes, Ethan. But we'll survive." Only now, looking back, I realized that wasn't grief in her eyes. It was relief. After the letter, I couldn't shake that feeling. Like there was something off about the story she'd built. Dad's arrest was supposed to be open and shut. Money missing from company accounts, his password used, evidence stacked high. But there were cracks I never noticed before. Like how Mom suddenly became the majority shareholder of Ross Construction 3 weeks after he was convicted. Or how the guy who discovered the missing funds, her friend Michael from church, was the same guy she married 2 years later. Back then, I told myself it was coincidence. Now, coincidence smells a lot like manipulation wearing perfume. I started small. Mom kept old boxes in the attic, financial records, company files, her scrapbooks. I told her I wanted to help her clean them out. She smiled. "You help me organize paperwork?" Miracles do happen. That's the thing about liars. They get comfortable. They never expect you to start paying attention. So while she was downstairs making tea, I started flipping through dusty folders. Invoices, payroll, tax files. Then I saw it, a folder labeled Tax Holding Accounts, 2011. I almost laughed. Because that was the year everything went to hell. Inside were copies of wire transfers, 35,000 here, 50,000 there, moved from Ross Construction into offshore accounts. Every document had one signature. Not Dad's. Mom's. Her handwriting, her login credentials. She'd moved the money herself, then pinned it on him. I sat there staring at the pages like they were radioactive. And suddenly all those years of her playing the martyr, talking about forgiveness, healing, putting the past behind us. They weren't noble. They were cover. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to process it. Part of me wanted to believe there was a reason. A blackmail, a threat, something that made her do it. But deep down I knew. She did it for money, for control, for image. Because in our house, reputation was religion, and she was its high priest. 3 days later I finally asked. We were sitting at her kitchen table, sunlight hitting her face just right, the same way it did during her press interviews back then. "Mom," I said casually, "when Dad was arrested, did you ever see the actual transfer documents?" She blinked. "What?" I was looking through some old files. Just curious. Her hands froze around her coffee mug. "Ethan, why would you bring that up? It's been years." "I know. Just wondering how you knew it was him." Silence. Then she smiled, that politician smile, the one that looks warm but never reaches her eyes. "Because I trusted the evidence. The police did their job. It's over." "It's not over if he's still in prison." She sighed, that heavy "I'm the victim again" sigh. "Your father made choices, Ethan. We both suffered for them. Don't dig up ghosts." That's when I knew she wasn't scared I'd find out the truth. She was scared people would. That night I couldn't sleep. Every childhood memory felt poisoned. The birthday parties she saved after Dad's arrest. The nights she told me we're survivors. She wasn't a survivor. She was the storm. And yet, I still loved her. That's the worst part. You can hate someone and still love them, like your brain and your heart filed for divorce but forgot to tell your body. So I did what any emotionally confused grown man would do. I poured a drink and started Googling how to access archived bank data. Over the next few days, I became an amateur detective. I tracked down Dad's old accountant, Greg. Nice guy, mid-50s, still running a small firm out of a strip mall. He looked surprised when I introduced myself. "Ross's kid. Damn, thought you moved out of state." "I did. I'm back." "Your mom still around?" "Yeah. She's doing great." He chuckled. "Of course she is. I leaned forward. Greg, off the record, did you ever believe my dad stole that money? He hesitated. Can't say for sure, but I always wondered why the wire transfers matched Linda's office login, not his. She said he borrowed it sometimes. Still, never sat right with me. Bingo. It wasn't proof yet, but it was confirmation I wasn't crazy. I called Dad's lawyer next. He remembered me, mostly as the quiet kid sitting in the corner of every meeting. When I asked for the case file, he laughed. You know your mom threatened to sue me if I ever reopened this? Yeah, sounds like her. He emailed the file anyway. I spent hours cross-checking signatures, timestamps, logins. The more I read, the angrier I got. Because the truth wasn't just hidden, it was manufactured. Dad's downfall was perfectly staged. A fake trail of emails, altered spreadsheets, even a staged witness statement from one of her employees. She didn't just throw him under the bus. She built the bus, sold the tickets, and drove it herself. When I looked at my reflection that night, I barely recognized the guy staring back. I wasn't just my father's son anymore. I was his only shot. And I'll be honest, there was a part of me that felt alive for the first time in years. Not because of revenge, not even because of justice, but because finally, I knew who the real villain was. I called Dad's prison the next morning and scheduled a visit. The warden warned me he hadn't had many visitors over the years. Your mom came once, he said. Didn't stay long. Of course she didn't. Guilt doesn't sit well with people who thrive on control. As I hung up, I couldn't help but smile, a dark, quiet smile. Because if Mom taught me anything, it's how to play the game. And this time I was playing to win. If guilt had a sound, it would be my mother's laugh that night. Brittle, rehearsed, like glass clinking too hard against marble. I'd driven to her house under the pretense of returning her old mail. In reality, I just wanted to look her in the eye and see. Sometimes the truth isn't in the words. It's in the pause before the lie. She greeted me like nothing was wrong. Eli, you look thinner. Not eating enough. Yeah, prison visiting hours kill the appetite, I said. That smile flickered. Just for a second, but long enough to confirm what my gut had been screaming for weeks. The night before, I'd gone through Dad's old workshop. The cops had sealed it up years ago, but I knew where he hid the spare key. I found blueprints, receipts, and one email thread that shouldn't have existed. It was between Mom and a man named Jerry Klein. The same Jerry who ran the construction company that mysteriously landed all the city contracts after Dad's arrest. In one email, Mom wrote, "Once Martin's out of the way, the bid is ours. I'll make sure of it." You know that moment when your entire world tilts, but you're still standing still? That was me, gripping my dad's old desk, reading the line again and again until the words blurred. Back at Mom's house, she poured wine. I didn't touch it. She always drank red. Dad hated the stuff. So, she said, swirling her glass, still chasing ghosts? I leaned back, pretending to be casual. Maybe. But you know what's funny? I found some of Dad's old emails. One mentioned Jerry Klein. Ring a bell. The glass froze midair. She recovered fast. She's always been quick. Jerry. Oh, sweetheart, that's ancient history. We just worked on a few city projects back then. Why? I smiled, slow and sharp. Because Jerry Klein's company was the one that supposedly bribed Dad. And now I find you emailing him about bids. Crazy coincidence, huh? For the first time, I saw something break in her. Not much, just a flicker. But it was real. She stood up, her voice turning syrupy sweet. Eli, don't twist things. You don't know how business works. Yeah, I said, neither did Dad. That's why he ended up in prison. The silence stretched between us, thick, heavy, buzzing with unspoken things. After that night, I couldn't unsee it. The way she'd kept our house while Dad rotted in a cell. The luxury vacations, gifted by her so-called business partners. The cold, calculated way she always dodged questions about the past. I started digging deeper. I hacked into her laptop. Not proud of it, but desperate people do desperate things. Found bank transfers, falsified documents, and finally a scanned confession draft. A confession she never sent. It was dated 3 months after Dad's arrest. If this ever surfaces, tell Eli I'm sorry. Tell him his father didn't deserve it. I sat there numb. My mother had written this and buried it. I confronted her again 2 days later. I recorded the whole thing. You framed Dad, I said flatly. You did it for Jerry's contract money. I have the emails, the bank records, and that draft. Tell me I'm wrong. Her face drained of color. She tried to speak, but all that came out was a shaky whisper. Eli, you don't understand. He was going to ruin everything. He was going to report the deals. You think your father was some saint? He wasn't. He... Stop. My voice cracked. You don't get to rewrite history now. You threw him to the wolves. Tears streamed down her face, but for once I didn't feel sorry. I felt awake. Then came the moment that still haunts me. She said, I did it for you. I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. Yeah, thanks for the childhood trauma, Mom. Guess that's priceless. You wouldn't have had the house, the school, the life you did. I would have preferred a father who wasn't in prison. The argument spiraled. Years of lies unspooling in seconds. Every word, every excuse, felt like rot peeling off a wound. Finally, I told her, you're going to help me clear his name, or I swear I'll burn down everything you've built. She didn't answer. Just sat there, small and trembling. For the first time in my life, she looked afraid of me. That night, I drove to the prison. Dad looked older, thinner, eyes hollow. I couldn't tell him everything yet, not until I had it locked down. But I said, Dad, I'm close. I found something. He looked at me, calm, tired. Eli, don't destroy yourself trying to save me. I smiled, forcing some humor through the ache. Too late for that, old man. When I left, he gripped my arm. Whatever you find, son, don't lose your soul over it. I nodded. But deep down I knew, you can't dig through filth and come out clean. On the drive home, I replayed Mom's words in my head. I did it for you. Funny thing about lies, they sound noble when whispered by the guilty. I didn't know it yet, but the next few days would push me past every line I swore I wouldn't cross. Because once you start unmasking family secrets, you realize the monsters were never hiding under your bed. They were tucking you in at night. You ever set a trap for someone and realize halfway through you're also walking into one? Yeah, that was me. By the time I decided to go public, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, but adrenaline. The kind that hums in your veins when you know you're about to light a match and watch the whole thing burn. I'd gathered enough evidence to bury her. Emails, bank transfers, that unsigned confession, even a voice memo where she practically admitted she framed Dad. But in the court of public opinion, you need presentation. So I built it like a story. Like she once told bedtime stories to me, except this one ended with handcuffs. First step, Jerry Klein. The man who'd been the silent partner in my family's downfall. I found him in a golf club bar, red-faced, drunk on success and whiskey. Mr. Klein, I said, sliding into the booth beside him. You remember me? He squinted. You're, the kid. Martin's boy. Yeah. The one whose father you helped put in prison. That sobered him up quick. I showed him the emails. His jaw tightened. You shouldn't have those. Relax. I'm not here for money. I just need you to confirm something. He glanced at the screen, sighed, and muttered. She said he was going to blow the whistle. I didn't think she'd actually go through with it. Bingo. I hit record halfway through that sentence. Now all I needed was for Mom to hang herself with her own words. I texted her that night. Dinner. Just us. I think I understand now. We should talk. She replied instantly. Of course. Guilt makes people predictable. I picked a fancy restaurant downtown, the kind she liked. Crystal glasses, candlelight, the illusion of control. I wore a wire under my shirt, mic live and feeding audio to my laptop in the car outside. She arrived in pearls and perfume, like she was playing her favorite role again, the grieving wife who moved on. Eli, she said softly, I'm so glad you reached out. I've been worried. Yeah, I said, me too. Dinner started civil. Small talk, appetizers, lies sprinkled like salt. Then I leaned forward. Mom, I get it now, I said. You were protecting us. You didn't mean for it to go that far, right? Her eyes flickered. She hesitated. That hesitation was gold. She started, then caught herself. What do you mean? I dropped my voice, gentle, coaxing. Come on. I found everything. Jerry told me. You just wanted Dad out of the way, didn't you? So the contracts wouldn't fall through. Silence. Then a whisper. It wasn't supposed to ruin him. I thought he'd just take the plea deal and... There it was. Confession. I wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. The woman who'd framed my father was sitting across from me, confessing over a $40 plate of salmon. And then she looked at me with tearful eyes and said, Eli, please don't hate me. That line, God, that line hit harder than any punch. Because I wanted to. But part of me couldn't. I ended dinner early, claiming I felt sick. She offered to pay. I let her. Felt poetic. In the car, I sat for 20 minutes listening to her recorded voice on loop. The way she said, it wasn't supposed to ruin him, echoed through the speakers like a ghost finally caught in daylight. I sent the file to a journalist the next morning. Not the cops. Not the lawyers. The press. Why? Because my mother taught me something. Truth means nothing until people are watching. 2 days later, the story exploded online. Local businesswoman implicated in husband's framing scandal. New evidence suggests decade-old case was a setup. Every channel played her voice. Her words. The sound of her empire cracking. My phone blew up. She called, texted, begged. Eli, how could you? We can fix this. Please don't do this to me. I didn't respond. I just watched the world finally catch up to what I'd known for years. Then the cops showed up. Not for me. For her. Watching her get escorted out of that glasshouse she loved so much felt surreal. Reporters shouting. Cameras flashing. Her hand shielding her face like that would hide the truth. Trash takes itself out. But victory tastes strange when it's soaked in blood you share. Dad was released 2 weeks later. No grand reunion, no movie ending. Just 2 men sitting in silence in a cheap diner, staring at untouched coffee. He said quietly, You did what you had to. And I said, Yeah, I guess I did. We sat there both free and broken in different ways. The night after, I drove by Mom's house. Now empty, windows dark. Her garden was dying. The roses brown and brittle. I don't know why I did it, but I left a single photo on her doorstep. One of us as a family, before it all fell apart. On the back I wrote, You taught me how to win, Mom. You just forgot to teach me how to forgive. Then I walked away. Funny thing about revenge. It never really ends where you think it will. It's not fireworks. It's ashes. But sometimes ashes are the only proof there was ever a fire at all. Freedom doesn't make noise. It doesn't come with music or applause, or the world suddenly making sense. It's just silence. Deep, awkward silence. Like the kind you hear in the car after a fight, when both people know they've said things they can't take back. That's what my life sounded like after everything came out. Dad was free. Mom was in custody awaiting trial. And me. I was supposed to feel victorious. The world called me a hero, the son who exposed the truth. But when the cameras turned off, I just felt like the kid who broke his own family. I still remember the day Dad came home. I expected him to be angry, or maybe relieved. Instead, he just stood there in the living room, looking at the old family photos still hanging on the wall, the ones Mom never took down. She kept them, he said softly. Yeah, I muttered. Guess guilt makes good decor. He didn't laugh. He just nodded like that was fair. Then he sat down, rubbing his temples. You know, he said after a while, your mother wasn't always like that. She used to believe in people. Yeah, well, I said. Then she started believing in money. He gave me this sad little smile, the kind that says you think you've won, but you have no idea what you've lost. For the first few weeks, we tried to live normally. Coffee in the morning, evening walks, avoiding the subject of her. But she was everywhere. On the news, on the internet, in the silence between our words. One night, I found him watching one of her interviews from before the scandal. She was smiling at the camera, confident, charming, the same woman who could convince anyone of anything. I said, "Why are you watching that?" He didn't take his eyes off the screen, trying to remember when I stopped recognizing her. That one hurt, because I'd asked myself the same thing. A few days later, I got a letter from her. No return address, but the handwriting was hers. I'd seen it enough times on birthday cards and report cards and fake permission slips. I didn't want to open it. But curiosity always wins. "Eli, you did what you thought was right. I can't hate you for that. Maybe I deserve what's coming. But please believe me when I say, I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to love right. Tell your father. I'm sorry. Mom." I folded the letter neatly and set it on the counter. I didn't show it to Dad. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Weeks turned into months. The media moved on as they always do. Someone else's scandal took the spotlight. I went back to work, tried to be normal. But every time someone said, "Man, you're brave," I wanted to laugh. Brave? No. Just tired. You know what bravery really is? It's waking up and facing the mirror after you've become the person who destroyed your own bloodline, even if they deserved it. Then came the trial. I didn't attend the hearings. Couldn't. Watching her in that orange jumpsuit would have been too much. I read the verdict online instead. Guilty. Wire fraud, conspiracy, perjury. 8 years. 8 years for 10 years of my father's life and a lifetime of mine. Dad didn't say a word when I told him. He just nodded, stood up, and went for a walk. When he came back, he said, "You did the right thing, Eli. But the right thing doesn't always feel right." He was right. God, he was right. About a month later, we visited her. Together. She looked smaller. Quieter. The kind of woman who'd once owned every room she entered now barely filled a chair. "Eli," she said, eyes red. "I didn't think you'd come." "I didn't think I would either," I admitted. Dad just stood there silent. She tried to reach for his hand. He didn't move. The three of us sat in that sterile room, saying almost nothing, just existing, like three ghosts trying to remember how to be human. When the guard said time was up, she looked at me and whispered, "You have his eyes. You always did." I didn't know whether to take that as a curse or a compliment. Outside, Dad finally broke the silence. "She's paying for what she did. But don't let her mistake become your life, son." "What do you mean?" He sighed. "Revenge is like concrete. It sets fast, hardens you, and eventually you can't move without cracking." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I understood. Some nights I drive by her prison. Not to gloat. Not to mourn. Just to remind myself what truth costs. Other nights, Dad and I sit on the porch, drinking beer, talking about baseball or politics or anything but the past. He's learning to smile again. Me. I'm learning to forgive. Just not her yet. Maybe someday. There's this old saying, justice is revenge wearing a halo. I used to think that was poetic. Now I think it's just sad. Because when you finally get justice, you realize it doesn't heal. It just evens the score. And sometimes that's all you can ask for. So here I am, the guy who burned down his own family to set his father free. People still message me online, asking if it was worth it. I tell them the truth. It was necessary, not worth it. Then I laugh because it's easier than crying. And when I hang up, I whisper to the night. Trash takes itself out. But sometimes it takes a piece of you with it.